This is All India Radio. In the weekly program Current Affairs, now we bring you a discussion on Union Budget provisions for green growth, agriculture and cooperatives. The participants are Mukul, former UN Diplomat for Climate Change, and Harvir Singh, agriculture expert. The discussion is moderated by Arjun J. Chaudhary, AIR Correspondent.
On this Current Affairs program, we have a panel discussion on the Union Budget provisions for green growth, agriculture and cooperatives for the year 2023. And on this, we're joined by our two experts, the first one being Shri Mukul Sanwal, who is a former UN Diplomat for Climate Change. A warm welcome to you on the program, sir.
Thank you.
And I'm joined by Shri Harvir Singh, who is an agriculture expert. Harvirji, a warm welcome to you on the program.
Thank you.
And in today's discussion, we would focus on not only food production levels that are to be maintained despite climate change issues facing agriculture and farming, but also how to time the agriculture, the farming techniques on produce itself. The Rabi crop has been sowed. It is expected to be harvested. There is an expected rise in temperature. What are the inputs in terms of fertilizer? What are the agricultural credit available to farmers to mitigate risk? What are the crop insurance schemes available? How will farmers contribute their produce to FPOs to ensure that they get a fair price on the produce that they supply to these FPOs, the farmer producer organizations? And how can the consumers also benefit from the farmer welfare program so that India is able to fight inflationary concerns, so that inflation figures are under control and it does not in any way hamper the growth of India as a multi-trillion-dollar economy? And therefore, on this, we're joined by our two experts who will talk to us extensively at the ground level and also the urban level as to the impact of the union budget provisions to ensure that there is proper sync between what the aspirations of the farmers are, how they can get income from agriculture, while at the same time the farmer is able to meet the needs of the nation in terms of their produce. So let's begin with Mr. Sanwal. What's your take on the budget provisions and why is it called green and its focus on cooperatives?
See, the Prime Minister has rightly pointed out that these provisions are laying a foundation for the future. And that future is green and it needs to be linked with our rural economy, because however much we urbanize, we are not going to reach the 80% urbanization level of Europe, Japan and North America for a very long time to come, and maybe we don't need to. So therefore, if one looks at it in a little more detail, I'll just highlight one or 2 points. Green hydrogen has got 19,000 crores. Biogas from solid waste has got 10,000 crores. Scrapping of vehicles is 3,000 crores. Now these are areas where the West is not giving this kind of importance because this doesn't correspond to their situation. What is our situation? Our situation is the use of bio-waste. So biogas has got important input. We want to have bio-input research and natural farming because we don't want to be dependent on imported fertilizer, ammonia, naphtha. At the same time, a lot of our food is wasted. And in a poor country, it has a major impact, including on climate change. The West wastes food at the retail and consumer end. Something like 1/3 of their food is wasted, but that is part of their lifestyle. Our food wastage is between farm and the wholesale retail end because of the lack of infrastructure, the lack of marketing and commercial arrangements. Now here is the new issue. The big change that has taken place is that instead of looking at poverty alleviation, the Prime Minister is now saying we will use technology to further commerce, to link the farmer to the broader national economy and the market. And in this manner, we will raise his level of income and his level of welfare, and as well as the production and productivity of the country. Now this linkage is what led to the rise of the West. This linkage led to the rise of China. The thinking we had so far was that we will keep the person in the village because he is poor. We will help him with some subsidy so that he can survive. And then parallel industrial economy, urban economy will be built up. And now the two are being linked for the first time. And I think he rightly said this is the foundation for the future.
Mr. Sanwal, you mentioned about reducing wastage. What's the role of natural farming when you interpret the green push in the budget?
See, the Prime Minister has focused on bio-input research. He had first raised this in 2021, but it didn't get traction. Now, natural farming has yet to be defined, and quite rightly, because there is no global definition of natural farming, it has to be location specific. For example, in the Uttarakhand hill areas, crop rotation was followed in a manner that nitrogen fixation took place, the crops were drought resistant, and it was not high productivity or high production, but it was sufficient for the families for the entire year. And extensive cultivation was taking place rather than intensive cultivation. So in the desert areas, we have a different system. In the Indo-Gangetic Plain, a slightly different arrangement. For example, look at the question of sugar, a major cash crop for Maharashtra, UP, and parts of Bihar. So far, the price of sugar is dependent on the international market price. We produce more than we need, and we need international trade as a regular part of this. Now the government is saying we will link biogas as well as ethanol with sugar production, and not just produce it, but oblige oil companies to buy a certain percentage. So the key issue here is that someone has thought through the linkages, thought through the supply chain, and zeroed in on the key issue of marketing. If your market is assured, people will produce it. And as the number of vehicles increases, the market also develops. Now, this is linked up with the vehicle scrapping policy. Most of the government vehicles, a lot of these will be electric vehicles. So again, you have another demand coming up. Oil imports reduce. Take the other side. FAO says that 14% of the food produced in the world is lost between the farm and the retail, 17% between the retail and the consumer end. Now, in India, it has been estimated that the loss is much less. But then you have individual stories, that the one that has just appeared in the press, farmer walked 100 miles to sell onions and made a couple of rupees. Now, it's not just the loss of production and the climate impact of this, but also the farmer's welfare that has to be kept in mind. And therefore, the linkages are being established through infrastructure, through cooperatives, through packaging, storage, processing. So what is really happening is that it is not just the agriculture sector that is being linked to the modern green economy and the way the country is likely to develop, but even the urban areas, the mountain of waste that is around Delhi or every other major city, which is creating a major problem with no solution in sight, is now going to be converted to biogas. Not the biogas converters which we had in the past. In each rural household, putting cow dung, be dependent on some kind of temperature rise, minimum volume of cattle cow dung, and the kind of maintenance that farmers were not able to provide. Here, 10,000 crores have been provided for modern industrial plants. Now, this is the kind of shift that was needed to jumpstart the economy and link the rural areas to the growing market so that they can be a part of that growth. And I think that is the most important issue that is coming up. And along the side, you will have green jobs. Green jobs will be in new industry. It will not be in the manufacturing industry, as in the case of China, United States, and Europe, because the world has passed that stage. Robots are coming up. Automation has come up. We are finding it difficult to compete manufacturing with China. So we will need to shift, need a new vision to create jobs in different sectors, which also link up with other parts of the economy and sustainability.
Mr. Sanwal, you spoke about farmers' welfare, which is really key to ensuring that the green push on agriculture, the budgetary expenditures and the cooperatives work. Do tell us about the producer-based cooperatives in agriculture. We already have consumer-based cooperatives. Tell us about the producer-based cooperatives, which are also helping farmers market their produce.
You see, the big gap for the farmer, or the biggest problem the farmer faced, was land records. Land records, or KYC as we call it, in the urban areas, is key to getting credit, is key to marketing, is key to buying and selling produce. Now, the digital push that the Prime Minister is giving in agriculture is really the foundation of the shift that is taking place in the rural economy, of which the cooperatives are the visible part. The land record updation will help in crop assessment, will help in insurance settlements, will help in getting credit. And then, as part of cooperatives, these individuals who are more secure in their own livelihood will be able to get involved with the wider market, use the credit not just for producing, but for packaging, storage, and linking up with the growing urban economy. So the cooperative movement is providing a mechanism, because the private sector is not venturing in these areas. local traders do not have the reach or even the interest in farmers' welfare. So just as the banks replaced the old moneylender and the Jan Dhan accounts made a huge difference to the poor, similarly, with the comprehensive development of land records, a digital push will take the farmers to the next level and link them with its commercial activities where they will get more self-generating income. This, I think, is critical. And this is being linked up, as I said earlier, with the push for a wider transformation of India.
Harvirji, you understand cooperatives quite well. In fact, FPOs is something that you speak and write about as well. For the benefit of our listeners, do tell us about these producer cooperatives which help farmers market their produce in terms of value addition and ensuring that farmers get a good deal and the consumers also benefit from lower prices.
Yeah, Arjun, it is very important. Basically, farmers now through this process of Farmers Collective, they can get their input material at a very reasonable price. They can bargain that. They can collectively produce good quality of agriculture stuff and can sell at a reasonable price, which is giving them a very good return. And this process is possible only through either Farmers Collective in the form of cooperative or Farmers Producer Organization, because they can produce good quantity. At the same time, they can create facility for selling their produce in the good market, can create storage facilities, even can create processing facilities. And through this push, government is already on the process to create 10,000 FPOs, at least 2 FPO in every block in the country. And at the same time, recently government cleared a proposal that uncovered areas will be covered with 2 lakh primary cooperative societies in villages. So I think this push is a very big push, and first time it is putting cooperative on the forefront, and that is a solution for the country, for the farmers we have. At the same time, I can say that now we have to look farms as factory, because farms can create everything. Farms are creating energy, farms are creating food, as well as farms can create even industrial input and material. This is the future, and we are at the advantage as a big agricultural economy.
Harvirji, when an FPO is set up, how is it that the FPO is able to finance the purchase from farmers? Because farmers trust the cooperative as the vehicle or the institution that will buy their produce at a set price. They know that it's a known buyer and they trust the institution concerned. So how is the FPO financed to carry out its operation?
Arjun, actually FPOs are owned by the farmers themselves, like cooperatives. Farmers are member of the FPO. 500 farmers collectively comes together and become member of a company with a shareholding. They are the owner of that FPO. So that's why it is their process. It is their own organization which will buy the stuff from them. So this is the bigger trust building exercise. When you own your own organization, you are part of that. So whatever activity you are going to conduct, you always remain within that system.
Sanwalji, what's your take on the FPO system, which is self-financed because of the membership fees that comes in, that's pooled together, and then you have human resources who are skilled in adding value so that the produce is sold in the market. What's your take on that in terms of the government allocation in this particular financial year?
See, we have now reached a level of education in the villages, in the rural areas, which is much higher than we imagined or that existed in the past. A lot of skilled persons, skilled in the sense not just in terms of mechanization or electricians and carpenters, but also skilled in the sense of management and handling these affairs, have come up. We can see how small shopkeepers are spreading in urban areas or even in the smaller towns, and these are all people who have migrated from rural areas. So the management capacity, I would say, exists. They may not have gone to a fancy institution, but they have worked in their farms in the local area. They are interested. For them, it's a matter of survival. They are intelligent people. So I think it is a matter of guidance. Look at how in the milk cooperatives flourished. It all started with women. They were able to keep accounts. They were able to manage the affairs in a manner that it became self-sustaining. And we don't even question it today. We assume that it will work. It is similar fashion. I think time will show that these cooperatives will also function provided the right guidance is given from the top. And that, I think, is what the Prime Minister is going to ensure. So we must look at it in terms of a learning experience of the past, specific to us, and how this is going to be spread. Now, the other question is that it is going to be spread throughout the country. Now, here again, the agriculture and cooperative budget allocations for example, reach out to areas which they were not reaching out earlier, for example, oilseeds and pulses. The idea is to reduce imports and increase their production. But it also means that people in these areas will also get a chance to be part of a bigger economy. So when you look at the details, you find that with the land records, with insurance, with credit, and with these new sectors being opened up and not the traditional rice and paddy cultivated areas, but also horticulture, fisheries, you find that there will be a lot of activity that will be there for these people to get into. Markets will be created, demand will be there in the smaller towns, and this can become as self-sustaining as our dairies. So the question, I think, really is that the linkages have been established by the budget, and it is just a matter of implementation and guidance. As you had pointed out, that higher level organizations will need to handhold for a while, and that I think is possible because we have the model of the dairy system.
Well, the milk revolution and the FPO model that we are implementing right now on the basis of the budget can only be successful, as experts like you say, with the assistance of agricultural credit. So what kind of interest subvention schemes are available for the farmer to avail in order to be a part of this plan, grand plan of the government?
We need to shift a little bit from credit, just credit by itself, to the digital push that is being part of this. Remember that the budget also says, and the Prime Minister has pointed out, there is an accelerator fund for startups, and something like 3,000 startups have come in. And look at how our urban payment mechanism changed, with startups getting involved, getting linked with banks, and facilitating transfer of funds, the secure identities. Now, a similar revolution is likely to take place in the rural areas. So it will not just be the volume of credit, but the facility of the transaction, the ease of transaction, the security that this new startups or the digital push will provide, that will act as a multiplier effect. And I think it is in this context or in this frame that we should look at this exercise, because the Prime Minister has basically changed the framework itself, or is intending to change the framework itself until what we have been thinking of rural areas in the past, not as something static and stagnant, but as something dynamic. And in this new framework, new elements have been put in, and there will be gaps which will be filled up, just as the earlier gaps have been filled up. The bio-input in research was first talked about in 2021. It didn't take off. It is now being given a different push. So it is in this manner when we look at the agriculture, farmer welfare and cooperatives, which again is a new idea, the way that is being implemented now. We see an entire new framework emerging, which does not copy the frame of any other country or the advice given by external so-called experts, but is homegrown. It has evolved from within the country. It has evolved from our expertise and the scientists, and I think that is what is going to make it successful.
Mr. Sanwal, you spoke about technical inputs and technology transfers are key to ensuring that the grand scheme is implemented. Could you tell us as to how farming today in India is adjusting to climate change? You have been a UN diplomat for climate change. The Rabi crop has been sown successfully, but harvesting could be a challenge because of the rise in temperature that is anticipated right now. So what kind of hybrids and how is that actually finding its way into your everyday farming so that production figures are maintained?
See, what we are experiencing today, not just in India but throughout the world, is climate variability. It is extreme events are coming up, timings are changing, but the climate itself is still not changing, which means it is not following a certain trend. So you have a heat wave, you have cold freeze in the United States at this time. So it is the climate variability that is creating a problem, for sure. Now here what is happening is that India is the only country in the world, and I think this is something which we forget, because it is the monsoon that led to our prosperity for millennia. No other country in the world has two monsoons, and agriculture dependent on the monsoons and not on irrigation works. Irrigation works came into this country only with the British, who wanted to switch the food crops to commercial crops of sugarcane, cotton for their economy. But traditionally, we conserved water, we used water wisely, and the monsoon was the result of our prosperity. Similarly, climate change, in a sense, will not affect us as badly as other countries because the monsoon became slightly variable, but it is not going to peter out. For example, studies show that the major glaciers are not receding because rainfall is not coming down, and they get their moisture from the rainfall. Unlike us, the Swiss Alps, the glaciers are melting because they are not very deep, their temperature effects, they are not dependent on something like a regularity of a monsoon, heavy showers. So the massive glaciers that feed our massive big rivers are not being largely affected by climate change at this point of time. What is happening is climate variability. Now we have the capacity, the agriculture research capacity within the country to look at the shift that is going to take place, to do the research, and part of this is the stress on oilseeds and pulses, which are dry land agriculture crops. So the issue that we are facing is that as the monsoon shifts, and I want to reiterate this, it is not that a sudden drought will take place or rainfall will come down or heat waves will dominate the countryside. It is that there will be certain changes, certain shifts, and these are being mapped. When they are being mapped, the cropping patterns in those areas where shifts take place will evolve. And since we are doing this multifaceted research, not just on paddy and wheat varieties, but also the dryland agriculture varieties and horticulture varieties, I think we are in a good position to manage this because of the scientific expertise that we have built up, the consciousness that is there, and the resources that are being provided for agriculture research. So I don't think we are going to have the kind of problem other countries are going to face because of the monsoon.
Harvirji, what's your opinion regarding dryland agriculture in India and the issue of climate change, which has threatened food production overseas, but not in India? India has managed to keep its food production levels not only constant, but has actually led to a rise in those levels. How do you see 2023 for the farmer, and how will the farmer cope with it?
Actually, it will depend what kind of monsoon we will have, and definitely I can say that the climate change is impacting our agriculture. Last year we have seen the reduction in the wheat production. This year there are finger crossed because winters are very good, but dry winters and temperature started increasing in wheat grown areas. But scientists are saying that still we are in a comfortable situation. We have to wait till mid-March. If temperature remains normal, we will basically harvest a very good crop. But we have this challenge. That's why our scientists are working on the varieties which can basically go away with even if there is a slight change on temperature rise or so. But it's a serious concern for us. When we talk about dryland now we have to work more and more on creating irrigation facilities because in dryland we cannot depend a very, very meager yield. We need a very good yield. We are still, except 3 states, majority of our states are below our international yield level. So that's why there is a challenge. But definitely we are working on the direction. I hope that these new initiatives like the push of green and natural farming and less chemical agriculture will benefit us to meet these kind of challenges. But we are in the midst of some new challenges, and we have to basically work to resolve the things and get ourselves ready for that.
So natural and organic farming is key to ensuring or mitigating the risk imposed by climate change. Do tell us about your opinion regarding crop insurance as a means to cover the damage as a result of climate change under this budget.
I think crop insurance is the most important risk mitigating measure for the farmers because this vulnerability of this weather and all and some other issues affect the crop production. In that case, if farmers are covered under crop insurance scheme, they can get compensated through their claims, and economically they will not become weak basically because our farmers are very small farmers and marginally farmers. If one crop failures push them into that trap, and if there is an option available to get them out of that, and if there is a failure and we can compensate them through, and it is only through the insurance coverage. I think we must strengthen more and more this Fasal Bima Yojana, Prime Minister's crop insurance scheme in many areas and try to make it universal and get every farmer covered under it.
What about interest subvention scheme by which the farmer can sufficiently finance the expenditures in farming?
Yes, one of the most, I think, very good initiative. In last more than a decade, we have seen this interest subvention scheme because farmers are able to avail loan at 7%, and if they are able to pay timely, they get one more subvention, and the net interest rate comes at 4%, which is reasonable, very low rate of interest. And we are continuously getting more and more farmers under this fold. I think we will cross 18,50,000 crore this year, and next target is to cross 20 lakh crore. So basically it is bringing farmers in this institutional credit system, which is more important. Right? They remain under the unorganized sector, the rate is very high, and they get exploited by money lenders. And so if the way we are going in this direction, I think this is the right approach, and we should strengthen it. And now farmers from fisheries sector as well as animal husbandry and dairy are also covered under this scheme. They also can get Kisan credit card, and they also can avail this low interest rate credit. That is very good thing.
So Harvirji, you are at the ground level. You deal with farmers on a regular basis. How is the farmer community getting mobilized for the FPO? How are they ensuring membership so that they can be part of the cooperatives, which are producer cooperatives?
Actually, FPOs and cooperatives are almost synonymous. FPOs are mostly under Companies Act and cooperatives are under Cooperative Act. In the functionality and intervention from the government officials is less under FPO because it is under the Companies Act and the government cannot disturb their function. I think that gives a different kind of freedom. But under cooperatives, if some farmers comes together, they are honest in their working. Cooperative is one of the best model which can work in our country and can basically empower the farmers for their better economic life and to get better realization from the same crop.
Sanwalji, what about at the consumer level? How important are the budgetary provisions to ensure that inflation is always under control, especially food and drink inflation?
Food inflation really takes place because of the marketing issue. The farmers take it to the local mandi. It is the money lender there and the trader who makes all the money and manipulates the market. I come back to the point of the digital push, the institutional linkage, as we have just heard. And when you short circuit all this arrangement, you come to a very different kind of arrangement, almost like when you go and buy soap or oil or any other product in the market. It is that kind of marketing linkages and introduction of the companies, as we have just heard, that will change the entire framework that we have been thinking of or seeing or that exists today, where of isolated villages coming to mandis every week or fortnight or month, and then going to a bigger mandi or market for produce, again in the hands of the middleman. That is changing very drastically. Now, all these linkages are being taken care of. We don't worry about the price of soap or any other packaged goods. It remains constant because there is an arrangement. A similar arrangement is being sought for the farmer. Now, the problem will be on the perishable commodities. We talked of fish, we talked of fruit, vegetables and produce that is perishable or susceptible to transport damage. Now that's where we need a different kind of arrangement because you need some sort of cold chain, you need a different kind of linkage. And I'm confident that will happen because of the milk example. Milk is extremely perishable, but we have established a chain, a processing at a district level, and then the market. The pouches can remain for a couple of days without damage. So a similar arrangement is likely to come up for fruits and vegetables, and this will give a huge push to the income of the farmers because the farm income is more on fruits and vegetables than on the other crops. So once this kind of intensification takes place, once this kind of market is assured, we will see more production, we will see steady supply to the urban areas, we will see that the farmer will make money in volume, not just in manipulation of price, which actually is being done by the trader today.
Right.
So everybody will benefit.
Well, Mr. Sanwal, thank you so much for being with us on the program and giving us reviews on the Green Growth Agriculture and Cooperatives, which is a part of the Union Budget provisions. We would also like to thank Shri Harvir Singh for being with us on this panel discussion and giving his views, especially on cooperatives and other benefits to farmers, including agricultural credit. Thank you so much.
You were listening to a discussion on Union Budget provisions for green growth, agriculture and cooperatives. The participants were Mukul Sanwal, former UN Diplomat for Climate Change, and Harvir Singh, agriculture expert. The discussion was moderated by Arjun J. Chaudhary, AIR Correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio.